RJT CompuQuest, we are a technology consulting firm with a presence across the United States, Canada, and India. We've been designing, implementing, and supporting enterprise technology solutions for more than 15 years now. Our portfolio covers enterprise resource planning, business process consolidation, CRM systems, SRM systems. We have a strong mobility practice, a strong business analytics practice, and we have cloud-based solutions also. RJT has developed customized solutions for multiple industry verticals. Retail and wholesale and distribution are amongst our strongest verticals, and we also have a presence in discrete manufacturing, healthcare, automotive, high-tech manufacturing, oil and gas, apparel and footwear, and in real estate. We are an SAP Gold level channel partner, which is one of the highest designations, and we are also master value-added resellers, which means we have extended capabilities to leverage multiple centers of expertise and multiple organizations in delivering solutions. And our speakers for today, Paul, whom you've heard for a little while now, I just thought I'll give him a little formal introduction. Paul is the Director of Pre-Sales at RJT CompuQuest, and he brings more than 14 years of experience with SAP as a consultant, project manager. He was a consulting director and a pre-sales director, and his experience is across the entire spectrum of SAP's product offerings. Jim Hoffman, who's our Senior Director of Business Development, has a very strong consulting background for about 14 years, and he also brings in a lot of expertise, a lot of domain expertise across retail, wholesale, and distribution, and life sciences. A quick note on the webinar, just for your own convenience, it would be helpful that if you're not speaking, you can place your phone on mute. And Paul likes to take questions at the end, but I'll let him decide. I think if you want to go ahead and ask questions in between that, I'll let Paul decide that. And you can also ask us questions using chat. So with that said, thank you, Paul, and let's hear your presentation.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and quickly review the agenda. We've gone through the introductions. Jim will do a basic overview of SAP Retail, and then I'm going to do a brief demo of the forecasting and replenishment capabilities in SAP Retail itself. SAP Retail offers kind of a standard F&R, forecasting and replenishment capability in the standard ERP product for retail. But there's also an advanced product, and I'm going to just do a very brief forecasting demo for you today on this. And then after that, we'll conclude, and the idea here is that we'll be able to be out of here, finish this up in about 20 minutes' time, and leave enough time for any questions that you may have about SAP Retail or forecasting and replenishment in general. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Jim Hoffman. Jim, you ready?
Great. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. And thanks for the introduction, Abhishek. And as Paul mentioned, just giving you a brief overview of SAP for retail. And I understand that there's several people on the phone from various industries and various levels of focus within the retail industry. But Paul has just brought up a slide here, which I think, from my standpoint, gives me a good introduction into explaining some of the capabilities across our sort of what we call our ecosystem for retail. And you'll see logistics providers and retail customers and also distribution companies. And so this solution really transcends much of the ecosystem and the different influences which drive people to look at getting efficiencies back into their organizations. And so just looking at this list of logos that you see on the screen here, I thought I would just go through some of our experiences, and I won't name the companies by name in general, but I'll go through some of the things that we've done within these companies that have provided value and added different capabilities and dimension to drive costs out and bring in efficiencies back in their organizations. So a couple of these that I'm looking at, we first engaged through looking at measuring performance and looking at activities at the store level. And they engaged us to be able to provide that kind of consistency into their business model. Others here on the list wanted to look at how their operations, such as promotions, were really meeting their key performance indicators. Another area of challenge for some of these clients was seasonality and what they call diffs, and Paul will go through some of those, which are influencing factors that tend to gauge performance in certain seasonal activities that that essentially they put together with promotions. Some of them are looking at they have such a complex supply chain, and you look at the different areas of this ecosystem that they want to be able to tie together and provide an operational business flow. So we engage with some of that as well. A lot of this we deal with mainly reporting and monitoring of activities at either the plant level or the store level. But the other areas, for especially some of these companies, especially during the times where we're running into economic limitations or areas that challenge their current business model, is the flexibility to adopt new business practices and add new SKUs to get beyond the boundaries of their current business model and be able to give them an additional level of foundation for additional profitability. Some of these companies are also looking at adapting enterprise standards and going across all areas of their business instead of all this diversity in different applications, which cause a lot of rework and a lot of frustration if you can't get to one area of your business or you can't see a certain area of your business. We've engaged them on those areas. Giving a more comprehensive big picture of the organization and looking at how the entire organization is really performing, and especially with some of these big box providers, they just need a better visibility of what their company is doing, and take a wealth of transactional data and just be able to and give them a better foundation for how their stores are doing and make proactive decisions around those areas. There's another one here. I see a big cosmetics provider, distribution company that needed an extensive amount of EDI capability and electronic orders to fulfill their hundreds of thousands of orders that they take on a daily basis here, and being able to use that and efficiently to be able to take orders in and immediately get those into the warehouse. Some of these are also very concerned with space planning and fixtures and how they organize the information at a store level to be able to avoid stockouts and information, products that are not on the shelves, which cost them money. A couple of these here that I see are also very concerned about the purchasing and the visibility of into all their business processes, making sure that their suppliers are able to supply the right inventory for their orders, but also look at what's being sold down at the store level, and also find out and reconcile what's in the warehouse to be able to fulfill those. And at the same time, what are our vendors doing? What kind of a scorecard? Are they on time with their orders? Are they sending us too many damaged goods? Those kinds of things are important to some of these clients. And I'd say across the board, their ability to streamline in unnecessary and labor-intensive business processes to drive costs out of the organization, this is one of the biggest areas that we're seeing out there. So just basically a better way and an easier way to gather this information and performance and get a better idea of what your business is doing. So in order to do that, on the next slide here, I think we've come up with, and we're using SAP's system of really understanding where costs are in the organization, what the effect of these changes. And you look at these, and this is just a very, very limited and select few, but you'll see in the middle there, you'll see a red arrow and a green one that, excuse my color blindness here, but I'm just anticipating the colors here, but you'll see a high and a low range, and these are industry standards. And so what we'll do is we'll come in and we'll gauge where you are as an organization and look at how we can incrementally use this move the needle concept as a means of driving costs out of your organization. So at the bottom, if you look at the average revenue size of a company at $250 million, and each 1% increment of operating income or cost of goods sold or even SG&A, there's several areas here that we can look at, and even if we drive 1% or maybe 0.5%, what the overall increment of value is that we can bring through the SAP system at really bringing costs down and increasing efficiency within your organization. So some of the ways that we do this are we come in and we do a survey. We understand your business. We get an idea of where some of the areas of challenge are within your organization, and then we'll put together and we'll prescribe a series of modules that will then address some of the business needs and address some of the capabilities and things that you can use on a day-to-day area of operation within your business. And so Paul is going to go through some of those in the next series of slides and identify some of the modules and things that are included in the SAP retail suite of products that you get as an overall solution. So, Paul, I'll hand it over to you as we venture into these next series of slides, and we'll go through it in that fashion.
Thanks, Jim. Okay, so this next slide covers the functionality overview of SAP Retail. Now, the SAP ERP, as I mentioned before to Gary while we were waiting for people to join, is an industry solution that provides extra functionality on top of the standard SAP ERP. Now, the SAP Business Suite also includes, the BOBJ, Business Objects Analytics, as well as data warehousing. That's also available as part of this. So typically when we talk about functionality overview, there's a lot of functionality on the analytics side that we could go into for quite a long period of time. And as you can see here on this slide, this is broken up into merchandising, supply chain, and store and multi-channel functionality. And then down below on this gray line, you see enterprise management and support. The next slide will expand upon the enterprise capabilities here. But even within the SAP industry solution for ERP, as well as the analytics, under the merchandising area, we're going to be covering forecasting and replenishment. And the demo that I'm going to be doing today is specifically in F&R. But you can see there's other functionalities such as merchandising and assortments, item retail, promotion and markdown management. On the supply side, of course, there's vendor relationships, global import and export, channel order fulfillment, supply inventory management, warehouse and DCs, transportation, and supply chain visibility. Especially on the visibility side, this is where our analytics really stand out, especially with things like business objects, dashboards, etc. And then over on the store side and multi-channel, of course, there's SAP's own point-of-sale and store operations functionality. Oftentimes, clients may be using third-party point-of-sale or store operations. There are standard SAP interfaces that will allow POS and store operations data to interface directly into the SAP system itself. And then there's also customer relationship management, CRM functionality that's also available that allows you to do online internet sales through e-commerce, having a call center for both information and customer service functionality, and then completely able to do customer loyalty programs as well for things like loyalty cards, etc. And then expanding upon the enterprise, what this is more standard ERP functionality, here it is expanded here. Standard master data management. Now, master data in SAP Retail has been expanded, so it's specific for the retail industry. So instead of, for instance, in SAP, the standard product master now becomes an article master for retail. Here's the analytics that I mentioned before, including quite a bit through business objects. Complete financials capabilities that have been around for years and years. As well as HR, corporate services, especially for travel and incentive and commissions, and then operations support. The most common support functionality that we see for retail is indirect procurement for doing things like MRO items, and then quality management if inspections are going to be required either through the production process, inspections for equipment in the different plants, or inspections at the DC levels for things like perishable goods. All right, so moving on into the actual demo itself. Now, SAP Retail and Forecasting, you can do it two different ways in SAP. You can do it using a standard ERP functionality for retail companies that have slightly lower volume and forecasting requirements. And then you have an advanced option of retail forecasting and replenishment that uses part of the functionality in SAP's supply chain management. And this F&R runs on a separate system. It automatically feeds data and shares data between the SAP ERP system and the F&R system, but it allows extremely high volume capabilities. So this advanced F&R is what I'm going to be showing you today. Here's a list of current clients that are running at the SAP F&R, advanced F&R functionality. And we are currently in the process of doing an implementation for Anderson merchandisers that is using this advanced F&R. Anderson themselves has 10,000 stores that they supply books, music, and video for Walmart, Best Buy, Sam's Club, etc. So they have quite a large number of stores across 10,000 with 30,000 SKUs. And for that, just the volume reasons alone, allowing for the optimal performance, since they have to run this forecasting and replenishment in a narrow window during the evening, that's why we are deploying this advanced version. So the advanced version actually takes the data from the ERP system through a standard interface functionality, and it brings in the master data, the open orders that are within the system, the stock that's currently out at all the DCs and all the stores, and the sales data that have been taking place itself. And it also takes into case something called the demand influencing factor, and we'll show you an example of this later. And from F&R, it actually generates the forecast to actually find out what sales are going to be in the future, and also does the replenishment. So if you're below minimum stock requirements at either a store or a DC, the replenishment functionality in here takes place. So for instance, for an initial forecast, for an initial article, this forecast will then get generated, and it will actually create either the production orders on the system if you're in manufacturing, or if you're doing more of a distribution model, you'll be generating the original purchase orders. And I'll go through an example of a forecast, an initial forecast later on. And then down here, when you're doing the actual replenishment calculations itself, then these order proposals come out of the system. Those order proposals are then transferred to the ERP system, and for a distribution model, those are generated into purchase orders. If it's a manufacturing model, then those order proposals are generated into actual production orders to be able to stock, to actually create manufactured items and stock your DCs and stores themselves. So what I'm going to show you today is creating and copying an article based on a previous article. So in this case, it's going to be a book. The book itself is going to be The Hunger Games. If you don't know, Hunger Games is a whole series of young adult fiction that's come out. There's a movie coming out later this month for the first volume, and I think there's 4 or 5 different volumes. So what we're going to be showing you is copying an article from a previous article. So I'm going to copy Volume 2 Hunger Games from Volume 1, and I'm going to copy the forecast, basically meaning that I'm going to copy the consumption curve that Volume 1 created and use that to actually generate a forecast. But before I run that forecast, I'm going to show you what the forecast looks like without this demand influencing factor. We showed that previously up here. This demand influencing factor will affect the forecast and the replenishment calculations. And in this case, what I'm going to do is show you a demand influencing factor that's going to tell the FNR system to create a new forecast based on the consumption curve, a revised consumption curve of Volume 1 of Hunger Games. And then you'll be able to compare those two different forecasts. So I'll stop for questions if anybody has anything right now. If not, I'm just going to go ahead and dive directly into the demo. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. All right, so here I'm actually logging in to the SAP system itself. Here is the actual workbenches that are available within SAP ERP and analytics. There's always a home screen and welcome screen that are completely configurable. These are all separate little workbenches that are set up by role within the SAP system. So for instance, I mentioned before there's a whole series of dashboards. Here's forecasting and replenishment. I'll show you that in a minute. Inventory, order to cash, procure to pay, financials, promotions, etc. And in this case, I'm actually creating a brand new article in the master data system, what's called Article Master. There are various views within the system, basic data, purchasing, sales, logistics, and POS data. I'm entering it, determining what, putting in the required fields. Here's the actual book itself, The Hunger Games Volume 2. I'm actually, if I scroll down here in the purchasing view, I'm giving myself a 90-day delivery time for my vendors. In this case, we're using a distribution model for retail rather than a manufacturing, but the concept is exactly the same. I'm also copying this, looking at the logistics store view here, that I'm referencing Volume 1. 135, this article 135, is Volume 1 of the Hunger Games. And while I've created a new article within the system for Volume 2, I have referenced in here Volume 1. You can reference multiple items in the system. So, for instance, if it's depending on what the retail product is, if it's a bunch of different shirts, you can actually generate kind of a combined AirSATS consumption curve that you want to base it on based on multiple reference products. In this case, we're just doing one reference product for the first volume of the Hunger Games. So at this point, I've copied my material from Volume 1. I've referenced Volume 1 as the reference article for this new product. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually run the actual forecasting and replenishment system itself. So in this case, there is now master data in the SAP system. There's stock information on the old product, but that's not going to be relevant. But there is sales data from Volume 1. This sales data from Volume 1 is going to be useful here and used because I am going to create a demand influencing factor that is going to say, I want to use the consumption sales information from Volume 1 to be able to create a forecast for Volume 2. So at this point, I'm going to go into the FNR system and actually run a forecast. And within forecasting, it automatically determines the relevant data and the optimization. It determines what class it is, if it's a fast seller or a slow seller, specifically at the store location. And it will evaluate the demand influencing factors here, and it will also select the forecasting algorithms. It can use various algorithms, forecasting methodologies. The most common one is the mean value method that is typically and automatically used for most forecasting functionality. But there's other methodologies. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. Things like constant zero, constant ones, regression, and smoothing are all available in the FNR system. In this case, we're going to go ahead and create one using the standard mean value method. And I'm going to go ahead and execute that forecast for this store in Philadelphia, store 1101. Here's the book, Hunger Games Volume 2. And again, I have indicated this blue. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down here, show you these are the forecasts that I've created for the new Volume 2. And here's my consumption curve for Volume 1. Now notice this forecast doesn't look anything like what happened in the old consumption curve. And that's because I haven't activated the demand influencing factor. I just ran the forecast without actually assigning the demand influencing factor and rerunning the forecast itself. So just as a point of comparison, here's the forecast without the demand influencing factor. I'm going to go ahead and swap out of here, go into the actual DIF itself. Here's the one that I've created. I'm not going to go into the details of the identifier and the types, but suffice it to say that I've configured this to use the consumption curve for volume 1 and create that for volume 2. I'm going to click on active here and then click on save. Now I've actually saved and activated my demand influencing factor. I'm going to go back to my forecasting workbench. Here's my number for my store in Philadelphia. I'm going to go ahead and rerun the forecast. And this is swapping back to my graphic here. I'm going to click on the refresh button. Once I click on the refresh button, boom, now you'll see I've changed my forecast. The forecast now that have been set up for the store in Philadelphia, notice it's not a full 3-month forecast. Through determining the demand influencing factor, we've decided that the peak of volume 2 is going to be a month long rather than a 3-month-long peak that volume 1 had. So now that the forecast has actually been generated, this information will now go back to the SAP ERP system so that in a distribution model, purchases from the vendors will then populate the DCs and the stores so that when at this date we'll have this level of stock in the system for the expected sales forecast to take place. Or if it's in a manufacturing model as opposed to distribution, the forecast will be sent back to the ERP system to be able to process production orders, so that you'll be able to use the production process to be able to create the inventory, distribute the inventory to the DCs and stores, so that you will also have this level of stock at the time when the expected sales are supposed to take place, when the actual peak sales takes place itself. So that's the end of the forecast itself. So the whole idea here is for you to be able to have complete visibility in the SAP retail system through these use of dashboards and graphics within the system itself. The system is entirely integrated. Forecasting, orders, financials, purchasing, all of it is integrated within the system itself. There's no one system talking to each other. There's no there's no siloed systems that have to deal with interfaces going back and forth. And the other great capability here is the platform for growth. SAP retail systems start with very small companies, below 200 million, up to large multi-billion-dollar companies that are, as you saw on this previous slides. And then finally, there's the productivity capabilities. The ability for buyers especially to be able to use the system, use the dashboards, the graphics, and be able to streamline those operations, providing you with industry best practices and especially the management by exception capabilities that are available to you in the SAP Analytics. So that is the end of our demo and our takeaways. At this point, we can open everything up for questions.
Paul, while folks are trying to assess and align their questions, there's another thing I wanted to add, especially on the last bullet point here in productivity. Obviously, there's a full suite of products that Paul showed in the sort of the entry point of all the different modules, and we chose forecast and replenishment to focus on today, but we could go into a full day session on looking at inventory and purchasing and master data and how it integrates to financials, looking at how it integrates to HR and eventually into the full financials. But there's also a whole new series of products that extend the capability to increase the shopper experience and brand awareness, and that's in the mobility suite that is now available through SAP, which connects into retail that give people the ability to search and inquire and procure items that are done right from their mobile devices. And it's getting pretty exciting that technology is in existence now, and you can add that into your forecast for increasing productivity and awareness of your products and making things more efficient and increasing your market share through technology. So those things are very, very exciting, and those things are becoming very, very important to a lot of clients that approach us on increasing functionality within their business.
So any questions, Greg or Gary, or who else is on the line here?
No, I'm good. I'm impressed. So you can say that.
Okay, great. Thanks, Greg. Gary, any questions then? Oh, we may have lost Gary on the line. Any other questions? I see we've got Jennifer and Raja. Any questions from you folks before we wrap this up?
No questions. Thanks.
I'm sorry.
Are these slides going to be available on any kind of a portal?
Yeah, there'll be this and a recording of this will be available on the the RJT website.
Fantastic.
Which is rjtcompuquest.com. Okay, well, at this, hey, I want to thank everybody for joining, and our contact info is also down here. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call us. Jim especially is available to start the ball rolling in regards to any other additional information you would like to have regarding SAP Retail or forecasting and replenishment in particular, or you could contact me directly.
Or any other aspect of your business that we didn't touch that you need a deeper dive on, then we're certainly willing to take whatever aspect you want to dive into, and we'll get right back to you.
Okay. So Abhishek, I think we're done. Thank you, everybody, for joining.